Well, look who just made my day. You. Thanks for dropping by. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe and share this video with someone who'd love it too. And hey, drop a comment with your city or country. I'm always curious where my viewers are tuning in from. All right, enough chit-chat, let's roll. When I opened the door to my own living room and saw my wife wrapped around another man, I didn't lose control. There was no shouting, no smashed furniture, no swinging fists. I just stood there, cold still, while she had the gall to suggest an open marriage. I smiled. I said yes. And then I invited his wife over for dinner, a simple gesture that would unravel every carefully buried lie Monica thought she'd concealed. She wanted to play games? Fine. But she overlooked one crucial fact about me. I'm an engineer. Engineers don't build anything that crumbles the moment a storm rolls in. My name is Martin Benson. I'm 47, and for the last 20 years I've designed nearly half the bridges in this county. My work is meant to withstand hurricanes, earthquakes, and decades of punishment from time itself. Strange, isn't it? That a man who could craft structures to endure anything couldn't make a marriage survive a single September night. I remember that night with brutal clarity. Rain hammered against the bedroom window in wild sheets, drumming a restless rhythm that kept dragging me in and out of uneasy sleep. Monica still hadn't come to bed. Nothing out of the ordinary. She claimed she had last-minute work for an important presentation in the morning. Monica was head of HR at Westfield Marketing. Bringing home late-night tasks wasn't unusual. What came next was, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Once, twice, 3 sharp bursts, urgent and insistent. Half asleep, I reached for it, and my fingers brushed against another phone. Not mine. Heron, Monica's personal phone. She never left that phone unattended. I checked my own first. 3 messages from an unknown number stared back at me. Your wife is cheating on you. Check her work phone. She's got a second one. She's downstairs with him right now. A chill cut through me like ice water. I shot upright, heart thundering in my chest, and strained to listen. The house was quiet, but not the warm quiet of a home at rest. This was silence under tension, like the pause before something breaks. I swung my legs over the bed, adrenaline sparking through me like electricity. If I went down there, if I found them, then what? I had a career, a name in this community. And Mila, our 14-year-old daughter, was asleep just down the hall. But something inside me shifted, hardened. I had spent my entire life designing things meant to last. I wasn't going to let my marriage collapse without knowing why. I needed the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Slowly, I eased the bedroom door open, careful to avoid the one loose board that always groaned near the frame. The hallway was swallowed in darkness, except for the faint glow spilling up from downstairs. Then I heard it, laughter. Monica's laughter, but different, softer, warmer. A kind of intimacy I hadn't heard from her in years. My hand tightened on the banister as I descended each step, slow and silent, bracing myself for what I already knew I'd see. The laughter stopped. Whispered voices. Then silence. At the bottom of the stairs, I stepped to the edge of the living room, and the sight burned itself into me forever. Monica sat far too close to another man on our couch. Her hand rested casually on his thigh. His arm curled around her shoulders like it belonged there. The world tilted. I froze in the shadows, watching a stranger's hands on my wife. He was younger, mid-30s maybe, sharp suit, groomed hair, the kind of polish that screamed hungry corporate ambition. I knew him, Ethan, a name Monica had dropped a few times in passing, always too casually. Now I understood why. My hands curled into fists. I was ready to step forward, until the front door swung open. The sound shattered everything. Mila stood there in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, house keys dangling from her hand. She wasn't supposed to be home. She'd gone to a friend's place for a science project. Dad? Her voice trembled, eyes darting from me on the stairs to her mother on the couch, and finally to the stranger sitting far too close. Time froze. Monica went pale. She jerked away from Ethan as if burned. He jumped to his feet, guilt written all over him. Mila, honey, Monica began, but Mila's face had already crumpled in hurt and disbelief. Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "I should go," he muttered, edging toward the door. "Yes," I said, my voice low, even steady, as I stepped out of the shadows. "You absolutely should." I moved to block his way, straightening to my full height. "But first," I said, each word deliberate, "you're going to tell me exactly who you are and why you're in my house with my wife at 11 o'clock at night." Ethan faltered, eyes flicking between Monica and me, searching desperately for an escape that wasn't there. "Look, man, this isn't—" "Dad, what's going on?" Mila's voice cracked, tears welling in her eyes. I turned to face my daughter, my heart constricting at the sight of her frightened, bewildered expression. Her eyes darted between me and her mother, desperate for answers she wasn't ready to hear. "Mila," I said gently, forcing calm into my voice despite the storm inside me. "Go upstairs to your room. I'll come talk to you in a few minutes, okay?" She hesitated, caught between fear and confusion, before giving a reluctant nod. Without speaking, she cast one last, questioning look toward her mother, then bolted up the stairs. When her footsteps faded into silence, my attention shifted back to Ethan. He was inching toward the side of the room, every muscle in his body screaming for escape. "I asked you a question," I said, stepping closer, my tone low and edged with steel. "Who are you to my wife?" Ethan swallowed hard, his Adam's apple jerking as his gaze flicked toward Monica, silently pleading for her to intervene. She stayed frozen, rigid, as though carved from stone. "I'm her co-worker," he finally muttered, lifting his chin slightly as if daring me to challenge him. "We work together." A humorless smile twisted across my face, brittle and sharp. "Is that what we're calling it now?" I asked. "Martin, stop!" Monica finally spoke, her voice splintering the silence as she shot to her feet. "This is ridiculous. You're blowing everything out of proportion." Disbelief slammed into me like a physical blow. "Out of proportion?" I repeated, incredulous. "Our daughter just saw you curled up with another man on the couch, and somehow I'm the one overreacting?" Ethan seized the opportunity to slip past me toward the door. "I'm just gonna head out," he muttered. "Yeah," I snapped, refusing to look at him. "Do that, and don't come back." The door shut behind him, leaving only Monica and me standing in the wreckage of what I'd thought was a solid marriage. "Explain," I said, my voice low and cold. "Right now." Monica started pacing, her movements restless and jagged. Her fingers twisted anxiously around her wedding ring, the diamond I'd spent 2 years saving to buy. The irony made my stomach churn. "This isn't what it looks like," she said finally, her voice tight and brittle. A harsh laugh ripped out of me, bitter, foreign, unrecognizable. "Really? Because from here it looks exactly like my wife was getting cozy with another man in our living room. So go ahead, tell me what it's actually supposed to look like." Her jaw clenched. "Ethan and we're close," she admitted. "We work together and sometimes boundaries get complicated." "Complicated?" I stepped toward her, my voice slicing through the tension. "Marriage vows aren't complicated, Monica. They're crystal clear." She crossed her arms over her chest, her go-to defense whenever she felt cornered. "You don't understand," she shot back, frustration bleeding into her voice. "Things between us haven't been okay for a long time." "Then talk to me," I countered sharply. "Get counseling, work it out, but don't bring another man into our home." "It's not that simple," she yelled, her voice cracking. "You're never here. You're always buried in work. Your bridges, your projects, everything comes before us. You've been gone in every way that matters for years." The words cut deep, but I knew what they were. Deflection. "How long?" I asked quietly. Her silence was damning. When she finally spoke, it gutted me. "A few months," she whispered, unable to meet my eyes. "Months?" The word tasted like ash. "So what? Your plan was to just keep sneaking around? Were you going to leave me, or keep pretending nothing was wrong?" She inhaled shakily, squared her shoulders, and finally met my gaze. "I was thinking about asking for an open marriage," she said. The air left the room. Her words hung there like a bomb that had already gone off. I stared at her, waiting for the smirk, the laugh, anything to prove she wasn't serious, but she wasn't joking. An open marriage, I said flatly. Yes. Her voice steadied, unnervingly calm. It's more common than you think. It could give us excitement, freedom, keep our family together while letting us explore other connections. It could even make us stronger. The audacity left me speechless. She had already been cheating for months, and now she wanted my permission to keep doing it. You want me to give you the go-ahead to sleep with Ethan? I asked, my voice dangerously low. It wouldn't just be about me, she said quickly. You could see other women too, it would be fair. I looked at her, the woman who suddenly felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face, and something inside me shifted. The raw anger dulled, crystallizing into something colder, sharper. I need to check on Mila, I said quietly, turning toward the stairs. Martin, she called after me. We still need to talk about this. I froze mid-step and turned to glance back at her. We will, I muttered under my breath. But right now our daughter needs us more than anything. As I climbed the stairs, my mind churned with chaos, slowly piecing together a plan I hadn't dared consider before. If Monica wanted an open marriage, maybe I'd give her exactly that, though not in the way she expected. Upstairs, Mila was curled in a tight ball on her bed, knees drawn to her chest. Her face was blotched from crying, eyes rimmed red and puffy, dried tear tracks staining her cheeks. Seeing her like that ripped something raw inside me. Hey, baby girl, I said softly, lowering myself onto the edge of the mattress. Her head shot up, voice cracking as she blurted, Are you and Mom getting divorced? I exhaled slowly, choosing my words with care. I don't know yet, I admitted quietly. What you saw tonight? It's complicated. She was with another man, Mila said flatly. I'm not dumb, Dad. I nodded, unwilling to sugarcoat the truth. You're right. Your mom made some decisions, and those decisions hurt us. Why would she do that? Her voice wavered, almost breaking. Doesn't she love us? That question shattered me in ways I didn't know were possible. I wrapped an arm around her shaking shoulders, pulling her against me. Of course she loves you, Mila. None of this has anything to do with you. This is between your mom and me. Mila pressed into me, suddenly small again, fragile in a way I hadn't seen since she was little. At 14, she'd been building her walls, staking out her independence. But right then, she was just my little girl again. What happens now? She whispered. I don't know, I answered softly. But I promise you this. No matter what happens between your mom and me, you'll always come first. We both love you more than anything in the world. Her next question cut deep. But things are going to change, aren't they? I hesitated, unwilling to lie. Yeah, I said finally. Things will change, but change isn't always bad. Sometimes, it's exactly what we need. Silence settled over us, heavy and unspoken. Her breathing slowly steadied. You should try to sleep, I murmured. You've got school tomorrow. She nodded but didn't release my hand. Dad, are you okay? The question caught me off guard. Even in her own pain, she worried about mine. A surge of pride broke through the ache in my chest. I will be, I said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. I'm tougher than I look. A faint smile tugged at her lips. You built the Miller Bridge, she whispered. Mom always says nothing can break that, so nothing can break you either. Her words burned and comforted me all at once. I managed a small, bittersweet smile. Smart kid, now get some rest. When I returned downstairs, Monica stood waiting, arms crossed tightly over her chest like armor. Is she all right? She asked cautiously. She will be, I replied, my tone cold. No thanks to you, but she's strong. Martin, about what I said... I cut her off with a raised hand. Not tonight. I need time to think. And I would think... She had no idea what I was planning. The next morning I drove Mila to school early. Neither of us had slept much, but I insisted on holding to routine, at least for her sake. Monica had tried to sit with us at breakfast, but Mila barely acknowledged her presence. The hurt in Monica's eyes didn't move me. She had made her choice. After dropping Mila off, I didn't head straight to the office. Instead, I pulled into a quiet downtown cafe, ordered a black coffee, and settled into a corner booth. I unlocked my phone and scrolled until I found the name I was looking for. Lena Rivers, Ethan's wife. We'd spoken briefly at a few company events. She'd always struck me as thoughtful, reserved. If memory served, she was a child psychologist. Monica had once dismissed her as too serious for Ethan. Funny how that comment sounded now. I hovered over the call button, hesitation gnawing at me. Dialing her would change everything. Once I crossed this line, there was no going back. But Monica had already crossed it the night she let Ethan into our lives. I pressed call. The phone rang 3 times before a cautious voice answered. Hello? She obviously didn't know who was calling. Lena? It's Martin Benson, Monica's husband. A heavy silence stretched between us. Martin. Her voice faltered halfway through the name, growing guarded. Is everything all right? No, I said flatly. Nothing is all right. I need to speak with you about Ethan and Monica. Face to face would be best. The silence returned, longer this time. When she finally responded, her voice was so faint I almost didn't catch it. I was waiting for this call. My grip on the phone tightened. You knew? Not exactly, she replied, carefully measured. But I've suspected things. For a while. A pause. We should meet. Today, if possible. She named a cafe, and I nearly laughed. I was sitting there already. When I told her, she let out a short, bitter sound that was half sigh, half laugh. 20 minutes. Exactly 20 minutes later, she walked in. The moment she spotted me, she crossed the room with deliberate precision. Lena looked different than I remembered. Her dark hair now cut short, her face narrower, sharper, like stress had hollowed her out. No makeup. Deep circles shadowed her eyes. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Martin. That was all she said as she slid into the booth across from me. Thanks for coming, I replied, pushing a fresh cup of coffee toward her. Cream, no sugar, I added, recalling the detail from last year's company Christmas party. One of her eyebrows twitched upward. You notice things. I'm an engineer, I said with a shrug. Details matter. She clasped the mug in both hands but didn't drink. So, Ethan and Monica? Straight to business. I respected that. How long have you known? She asked. A few months, I admitted. Late nights, constant texting, suddenly guarding her phone like it's nuclear codes. Her eyes locked on mine. Classic. She asked me for an open marriage last night, I said. I watched her closely for a reaction. Lena didn't even blink. Let me guess, she said evenly. You caught them first. I nodded. Her composure impressed me. Our daughter saw them. That made her flinch. That's unforgivable. Which is why I called. I leaned forward, my voice low. What do you want to do about it, Lena? The question caught her off guard. I saw it in her eyes. They've humiliated us both, I went on. Are you really planning to just let it slide? Something hard flickered in her expression, the same anger burning inside me. What are you suggesting? She asked carefully. I told her. As I spoke, that flicker in her eyes turned into fire. That's ruthless, she whispered when I finished, and then she smiled. Not polite, not kind, dangerous. I'm in. She extended her hand across the table. Martin Benson. Sounds like the beginning of a beautiful partnership. I took her hand, and in that instant I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. Not hope for Monica and me. That was over. But hope for something else. Justice. Consequences. For the first time since everything had collapsed, I actually smiled. The next week, Lena and I constructed our plan like two generals preparing for war. We met daily, sometimes at the cafe, sometimes at a park on the far side of town. Never anywhere Monica or Ethan might stumble upon us. At home, I played my part perfectly, detached, but not confrontational. I let Monica believe I was still mulling over her proposal. She mistook my silence for surrender, exactly what I wanted. Have you thought more about it? She asked one night, sliding up beside me in the kitchen while Mila worked on her homework upstairs. The open marriage? I kept my voice calm, eyes fixed on the cutting board as I diced vegetables. I've been considering it, I said. The surprise on her face was almost funny. She hadn't imagined I would actually take her suggestion seriously. You did? Her forced calm couldn't hide the excitement in her voice. Well? She asked. I set the knife down on the countertop and turned toward her, facing her fully. I've got questions, conditions, boundaries. Of course, she replied quickly, nodding in agreement. We need to set clear rules. For example, do past relationships count? I watched her carefully as I posed the question. Monica faltered. You mean Ethan? Among others, I answered lightly. Her eyes narrowed. Others? I gave a nonchalant shrug. Honesty goes both ways. If there's anyone else I should know about, this is your chance to tell me. There isn't, she said far too fast. But Lena's information told a different story. She'd rifled through Ethan's phone while he was in the shower, 3 separate flirtatious chats with different women. Good to know, I said evenly, turning back toward the counter. What about veto power? If one of us objects to the other's choices? Monica frowned in thought. I suppose we could talk about that. Is there anyone specific you're concerned about? She asked cautiously. I smirked inwardly. She was already picturing me with someone else, already jealous. This wasn't about mutual freedom. She wanted a hall pass while keeping me tethered. No one in particular, I lied smoothly, just thinking it through. Meanwhile, Lena had been working her own angle. She'd deliberately left emails to a divorce lawyer open on her shared computer. She dropped mentions of marriage counseling into conversations with mutual friends, knowing they'd carry the message back to Ethan. She'd started dressing sharper, staying out later, offering no explanations. He's unraveling, she told me during one of our strategy sessions. Called me 3 times yesterday when I didn't answer his texts. Good, I replied. Monica's getting paranoid too. She's asked twice if I'm seeing someone. Lena's eyes glimmered. And the last piece? I pulled out my phone, showing her a message from our insider at Monica's office, the same contact who had sent me the anonymous tip that started this whole thing. Confirmed, I said. Thomas Grayson's been taking Monica out to lunch 4 times this month. Same hotel restaurant every time. He's her boss. Lena scoffed. Classy? Does Ethan know? Not yet, she said with a measured smile. But he will. The pieces were in place. All that remained was to trigger the trap. 2 weeks after discovering Monica's affair, everything was ready. Mila was spending the weekend at a friend's house, my arrangement. Some things, even for teenagers, were better left unseen. You seemed different, Monica remarked that Friday night as I entered the kitchen wearing a pressed button-down and my best jeans. Going somewhere? We're expecting company, I replied, checking my watch. They'll be here any minute. She froze mid-sip, her wineglass suspended halfway to her lips. Company who? The doorbell rang, cutting her off. I smiled at her confusion. Why don't you answer it? Suspicion flickered across her features, but she set down the glass and went to the door. I followed at a distance, close enough to witness every detail of her reaction. The door swung open, and Monica went rigid. Lena stood there in a sleek black dress, perfectly fitted to her figure. Her dark hair swept up elegantly, her makeup understated but flawless. Hello, Monica, Lena said evenly. Martin invited me. I hope that's all right. Monica spun toward me, fury and disbelief colliding in her eyes. What is this? I rested a hand lightly on Lena's back and guided her inside. My wife wanted an open marriage, I said calmly. So I agreed and invited her lover's wife to join us. The color drained from Monica's face. You what? Lena's smile didn't waver. Thank you for having me. Martin, your home is beautiful. Monica, your living room especially. I've heard it's quite comfortable. The barb hit its target. Monica's jaw tightened. This isn't a joke. It's not meant to be, I said quietly. You asked for openness. Lena and I are simply discovering what that means, together. With her? Monica's words sliced through the air, a harsh whisper dripping with revulsion. Lena cocked her head slightly, one brow lifting in cool curiosity. Why? Is that a problem? I thought an open marriage was supposed to be about freedom, Monica muttered, arms cinching tightly across her chest in that familiar defensive knot I'd seen 100 times. Freedom to see other people? Wasn't that the point? This is insane, she snapped suddenly, voice rising. Martin, you're doing this just to hurt me. Not at all, I replied, my tone infuriatingly steady. I'm simply following the precedent you set. You were the one who said traditional marriage was suffocating. I'm just living by the rules you wanted. For a brief moment, doubt flickered in Monica's eyes. She hadn't expected calm, no shouting, no begging, no jealousy. My composure, my willingness to play by her rules, pulled the rug out from under the narrative she'd built in her head. You don't even know her, Monica protested, her voice losing steam. I'm getting to know her just fine, I shot back. The same way you got to know Ethan and Thomas. Her eyes flew wide at the sound of her boss's name. What are you talking about? Oh, Lena chimed in, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. I thought open marriages were built on honesty. Isn't transparency the big selling point, Monica? Monica's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced down, flipped it over, too late. I'd already seen the name flash across the screen. You might want to take that, I said lightly. Could be urgent. Jaw tight, she grabbed the phone and slipped into the kitchen. Low murmurs followed. Urgent. Hushed. When she returned, her face was pale, movements jittery. Everything okay? I asked, feigning concern. Fine, she bit out, though her trembling hands betrayed her. Ethan was just confirming lunch for tomorrow. Actually, Lena interjected smoothly, he won't be free tomorrow. He's got a session with our marriage counselor in the morning. Apartment hunting in the afternoon. Monica blinked, stunned. What are you talking about? Oh, didn't he tell you? Lena's tone was breezy, conversational, and razor sharp. I filed for divorce. He got served yesterday. The shock rippled through Monica's face, so intense it almost looked rehearsed. You what? Filed for divorce, Lena repeated evenly, with a mountain of proof of his cheating, which, as you know, carries weight in this state's courts. I wandered over to the bar cart, poured 3 glasses of whiskey, and set them down. Drink? I offered casually. Feels like we could all use one. Monica didn't even glance at her glass. Her eyes were locked on Lena. You can't do that. Actually, Lena replied coolly, lifting her drink with practiced grace. It's already done. My lawyer says it's the cleanest case she's seen in years. Texts, hotel receipts, eyewitnesses. The paper trail is thorough. She sipped, slow and deliberate. Monica's phone buzzed again, Ethan's name flashing across the screen. She stabbed the decline button instantly. Are you sleeping with her? Monica spat suddenly, whipping toward me. I arched a brow. Would it matter if I was? You've been with Ethan for months. And Thomas. Isn't that what this arrangement was supposed to allow? That's different, she snapped. Different how? My voice hardened. Because you made the rules without telling me? Because you cheated first and then tried to justify it after the fact? This is revenge, she accused, voice trembling with rage or fear. No, Lena cut in smoothly before I could answer. This is exactly what you asked for. An open relationship. You just didn't expect it to swing both ways. Monica's phone rang again. This time, a different name lit up. Thomas Grayson. Busy night for you, I observed dryly. Might want to get that. She snatched up the phone and stormed upstairs without a word. The instant Monica disappeared up the staircase and her footsteps faded from hearing, Lena turned toward me with a faint smirk that spoke volumes. She's unraveling faster than we predicted, she said quietly. I inclined my head, a grim sense of satisfaction simmering in my chest. Has Ethan made contact yet? Right on schedule, Lena replied smoothly. He's frantic over the supposed divorce papers, the ones we both know don't exist, but of course he's blissfully unaware of that detail. And Thomas? I asked, my voice low. Her smirk sharpened. He just got an anonymous email about an hour ago. Photos of Monica heading into his hotel. Time-stamped to the exact night she swore she was at her sister's baby shower. A humorless smile tugged at my mouth. Flawless. Upstairs, Monica's voice erupted in a furious scream, followed by the shattering sound of something striking a wall. Everything was falling into place exactly as we intended. And this was only the middle act. The grand finale was still waiting in the wings. Moments later, Monica came back down. The air seemed to thicken as she stepped into the room. Mascara streaks marred her face, and her breathing was shallow and uneven. She'd been crying hard. "Everything all right?" Lena asked, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Drop the performance," Monica snapped, anger shaking her voice. "What is it you two want? To humiliate me? Congratulations, you've succeeded." Leaning back in my chair, I studied the woman I'd shared 17 years of my life with. "No, Monica," I said evenly. "What we want is for you to finally face the consequences of your choices, something you've avoided for far too long." "Fine," she spat. "I made a mistake. Is that what you want to hear?" She flung her hands upward in exasperation. "I'm sorry, okay? Now can we just—" The doorbell interrupted her mid-sentence. Monica froze. Panic flickered across her face as her eyes darted to mine. "Who is that?" "Are you expecting someone?" she demanded. I rose slowly, a smile spreading across my face. "Let's find out." When I opened the front door, Darren stood on the porch, his face rigid with barely contained rage. "Where is she?" he barked. I stepped aside and motioned toward the living room. Inside, Monica's expression shifted from confusion to horror as Darren stormed in. Behind him came Thomas Grayson, her boss, and, as we'd recently uncovered, her other lover, his jaw tight, his usual composed exterior visibly cracking. "What is going on?" Monica whispered, instinctively backing away. Darren's glare was lethal. "You told me you were leaving him for me, that what we had was real. Then I get pictures of you and him." He jabbed a finger toward Thomas. "At the Grand Plaza, the same night you swore you were at your sister's." Thomas straightened his tie, lips pressed into a thin line. "And you told me your marriage was over, that he was emotionally absent and you were filing for divorce. Imagine my surprise when my wife received an email exposing our affair." Monica's face drained of color. She looked from Darren to Thomas, then back to Lena and me. Her voice cracked. You set me up." Lena's smile was cold and sharp. "No, Monica, you set yourself up. We simply made sure everyone else finally saw the truth, not the version you've been selling." "You used me," Darren snarled. "Played me to get revenge on him, and you used him to climb the corporate ladder." "That's not true," Monica shouted, but even she sounded unconvinced. "Enough," Thomas snapped, his tone clipped. "I've already notified HR. Your employment at Westfield is terminated, effective immediately. Given the circumstances, I think you understand why." Monica's knees buckled and she collapsed onto the couch. You can't do this." "Actually," I said, pulling an envelope from inside my jacket, "we can." I handed it to her. "These are divorce papers, drafted last week." "No." Her voice was barely audible as she stared at the envelope like it was poison. "Martin, please, we can fix this." "There's nothing left to fix," I replied flatly. "You wanted freedom, Monica, here it is." As reality crashed down, the last of her composure crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as the carefully curated life she'd built collapsed around her. "What about Mila?" she whispered, trembling. "Our daughter will be fine," I said, voice still cold. "Better than fine. She's stronger than you think. Maybe stronger than either of us ever imagined." When I stood amid the wreckage of my marriage, there was no vindication, no grim sense of, "I told you so." Only the quiet weight of realization, the understanding that some things, once broken, can never be pieced back together the same way again. 3 months later, I found myself on the observation deck of the Miller Bridge, the newest structure I had poured years of my life into designing. That morning, during the ribbon-cutting ceremony, the mayor had praised it as a triumph of modern engineering. From this height, the city unfolded beneath me like a map, its veins of streets and rooftops glowing faintly as twilight coaxed the first lights to life. "Dad, are you okay?" I turned at the voice. Mila stood a step behind me, her face open but wary, her gaze carrying a weight far beyond her 14 years. Since everything had unraveled, She'd been forced to grow up in ways I wished she never had to. Just thinking, I said, slipping an arm around her shoulders. It's been quite a year, hasn't it? She gave a small nod, then leaned into me, a gesture so rare now that I felt it more deeply than I could say. Mom called earlier, she murmured after a moment. She wanted to know if you'd come for Thanksgiving. I kept my expression neutral. And what did you tell her? I said I'd think about it. Mila's eyes stayed on the horizon, voice low and careful. She sounds different lately, like she's trying really hard to be nice, but it feels kind of fake. I understood instantly. Yeah, I said quietly. I know what you mean. The divorce had come fast, faster than I'd expected. Monica hadn't resisted. After she lost her job and endured the quiet scandal that followed, she'd left for Cleveland to stay with her sister. Every Sunday, she called Mila, promising she was working on herself, trying to build something new from the pieces she had left. Sometimes, I told Mila, life hands out second chances, even when we don't think we've earned them. She tilted her face toward me, her gaze suddenly sharp, searching. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? The question lingered between us. I let the silence stretch before I answered. In a way, I said finally, I already have. Forgiving someone doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It just means you're done carrying the anger around. Mila hesitated, then asked quietly, What about Lena? Do you still talk to her? A faint smile touched my lips. Sometimes. We stayed friends even after everything. She moved to Seattle to start fresh. Mila studied me for a long moment, then asked the question only a teenager would dare. Are you seeing anyone now? I chuckled softly. No, kiddo. Not right now. My focus is on other things. I gave her shoulders a gentle squeeze. On you. On this. I gestured toward the bridge beneath us, steel and concrete anchored deep, made to weather storms. Strong, meant to last. You know, Mila said after a pause, her tone thoughtful, my science teacher told us bridges aren't just things. They connect places and people. Her words caught me off guard. I looked at her, struck by her quiet wisdom. She's right, I said softly. Very right. We stood there as the sun disappeared behind the skyline, streaking the clouds with orange and violet. For the first time in years, I felt something like peace. The life I'd shared with Monica was gone, its foundation too fractured to repair. But beside me stood Mila, and ahead, waiting just beyond the horizon, were possibilities I was only beginning to imagine. Not every bridge is made of stone or steel. Some are built between people. Some carry us over sorrow toward healing. And some bridges, I was finally learning, can only rise after you've burned the ones that were never meant to hold your weight.